So I would like to now introduce our second speaker to make some further additional remarks on the same book. And this is Adam Kingsmith, who is another co-author of the book, One Road, Many Dreams, China's Bold Plan to Remake the Global Economy, for which we very much appreciate you joining us today, Adam. So Adam Kingsmith is a doctoral researcher at the Department of Politics at York University. And additionally, he's one of the founders of an own startup on emotion AI. So with this rich context, his multifaceted areas of interest and of research include political economy, technology, mental health, emotions, and labor, amongst others. And additionally, his monograph to come deals with the topic of anxiety as a weapon, an effective approach to political economy. So with this background, I'm also very excited to have you here today, Adam. So also a very warm welcome to you. And if you like, I would also like to ask you now to directly make your opening remark. And maybe you have also some further additions to Professor Drache's insights today. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Clara. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short, but I have a couple of things to sort of add to flush out a little bit. So my theoretical approach to the BRI and the work that I did in our book project was largely focused on exploring the politics of culture, the politics of emotion, culture as power. So in essence, my theoretical approach to BRI takes the global economy to mean more than the balance between debits and credits. You know, it's not just a terrain of clashing institutions. It's not just about the AIIB versus the IMF or NATO versus the Shanghai Cooperative Organization. Through a concept that I term effective political economy, or APE, I argue there's a lot more going on here in terms of the psychosocial and material structures of the BRI than first meets the eye. And so when I think back to the reception of our book when it first came out in 2019, we were sometimes read as being pro-China because we weren't explicitly anti-China in the book. And what I mean by this is there's often a very skewed and oversimplified analysis coming out of the global north that does not always afford China the same nuances, tensions, and complexities afforded to global north countries, right? So one of the main issues, I think, with North American and European coverage of China is the way in which China is depicted as this immense monolithic force, as if that were an extension of kind of centuries of yellow peril sentiments, and B, that there aren't 1.4 billion people living inside the Chinese nation. So to be clear, right, I'm not saying that the Chinese government doesn't exert undue influence on the populace, but I think in many Westerners' eyes, China, the Chinese Communist Party, and the Chinese people are all taken to be interchangeable. And the fact that different people living in the same country can exist and think differently from each other is something that, for example, Canadians, both progressive and conservative, would understand about our own country, but aren't able to understand about a place like China. So the fact that, you know, North Americans do not know how to process different kinds of human existences in non-Anglo and non-European countries really only furthers the problematic practice of replacing the actual people of China with the West notion of China, right? So we hear so much about the rise of China, the threat of China in relation to its turbocharged global economic development over the last few decades. But I think a question that's really important that we don't often ask is what are the psychological and affective or emotional ramifications of hyper-capitalist transformation on people in China and across the Belt and Road Initiative, right? Because there's a dominant climate of positive energy in post-reform China, but this doesn't always reflect the material reality across the BRI. You know, lots of colleagues in Asia write about dangerous high-stress conditions that precarious delivery workers are subjected to, the pressures facing migratory laborers who kind of see their families once a year and working in different kinds of urban settings, the loss of secure factory work coupled with an out-of-control housing market. All of this has led many Chinese middle-class citizens, right, which is 715 million people, and lots of other people across the region to seek, you know, high levels of psychotherapeutic treatment in very high numbers. It's also led to the rise of Sang subculture, right, which is a worldview in China characterized by feelings of defeatism and loss, playing out on social media as a form of affective identification that communicates a sense of disenchantment with the main melody of China, due to a perceived incapacity to kind of live up to this positive energy. And so to bring this back a bit to the BRI, to bring this back to infrastructure and global development a little bit, if we think about the 2019 book, Unhappy China, which was written by Chinese thinkers taking aim at anti-China sentiments abroad and increasingly consumeristic practices at home, if we situate this book in the context of Xi Jinping's rollout of his new initiative of Happy China 2030, the mental and emotional health and well-being of the Chinese nation and across the Asian-like regions are considered paramount strategic importance and are placed at the top of the government's agenda and long-term planning. And I think the negative effects of COVID-19 have only reinforced this urgency. And so just to conclude my initial remarks, I think indeed China's economic reform, underpinned by the Belt and Road Initiative, has generated profound and sweeping changes, not only in the socioeconomic structure of the global South, which I think we're going to discuss at length today, but in what cultural anthropologist Li Zhang calls the inner landscape of China and across the New Silk Road. So in this regard, my conceptual approach to BRI, which kind of cuts across our book on the infrastructural contours of OBOR and my current work on anxious structures of emotional and financial capital, is focused on theorizing the relational networks that connect these inner and outer worlds, the inner worlds of emotion and psychology, and these outer worlds of infrastructures and institutions.
Thank you so much, Adam, for these remarks. I personally would like to say that I agree that these are very important points that should be taken into account much more by further research. So thank you for this.